Hello, my name is Krista. Here I'm going to address a couple questions that are generally asked about the bullet chamber when I show people it. Two questions. One, what is it? Which I believe we've gone through in the product demo, and I'll leave another link below. And two, why does this thing exist? So here I'd like to give a bit of a retrospection into the origin of its creation and kind of where I started and why it indeed does exist now. So I'm going to change positions on the camera a little bit so that we'll have a better view of the other prototypes. Give me a second. So to continue on the story of my foray into learning harmonica, the harmonica was one of those instruments that we picked when I was a kid, mainly because of my disability. I have arthrogryposis, and the effect of that on my hands is that I have locked wrists. And so anything that takes kind of some dexterity proves to be a challenge. When I was a kid, I did start taking some very beginner piano lessons, but I just never stuck with them. I was essentially a piano dropout. It was around the time of my 13th birthday that we were all going to a Cracker Barrel with my family, and my dad was going through the gift shop, and we found this book on harmonica. It was a clutch book, Harmonica for the Musically Hopeless, and we found the title funny, but he gave it to me, and he was like, well, I know harmonica is a great instrument, very expressive instrument, and you don't need necessarily a lot of hand dexterity to play it. Why don't you try it out? And so I got it, I tooled around with it, and it was one of those instruments and hobbies that I had as a kid where I was never officially consistent with it like a traditional instrument, but I never fully stopped either. I would take months at a time where I would play a lot, and then I'd take a few months off, but something about it just had me come back to it multiple times, and I just never stopped playing. And so now here we are, roughly 20 years later, and I'm having the time of my life with really good friends playing professionally out in the gigs here in DFW. And so it's been a really interesting journey for me. And it kind of all started with just that cheap book and the humble beginnings of learning the instrument. But, even from that time, I could tell that I was not able to kind of do some of the hand effects with the harmonica, and it was something that I was even already thinking about from an early age. One of the first things that I bought as a modifier to my harmonica was known as TurboLids, and this is what these are. These are specifically for a special 20, and they basically snap off and snap on together. You remove the cover plates and you put these on, and they do give you a little bit more of a chamber to wrap your hands around and cup. And I did notice getting a little bit of acoustic cupping sound from it. And for a while, I was just playing exclusively special 20s with this around the house for that very effect. It was a really good invention, and you can still buy them on their website today. So, in more recent time, when I started playing gigs more consistently, I'd say a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, also before I had the printer, I still had this mic, which is in this cup here, and I don't want to take the mic out, but it's essentially a ring mic, and the ring mic can go on your index finger, and you can sort of cup around your index finger to get the sound, and it was really meant again for people with small hands. Great invention. It was known as the Harmonica Honker back in the day, and unfortunately, you know, because this was made, I think, by one guy, I don't think they make these anymore. It was a great idea, and I know that it was shown off on a few players were using it back in the day. But my concern was that it would eventually be obsolete once, if it ever died on me. Getting a replacement would be kind of a challenge. Around the same time that I was playing with this mic again, I found another interesting invention called the Harp Wah. Now, the Harp Wah is basically taking the idea of a coffee mug and using it as a mute for your harmonica. Also a really great invention. You can still buy them today, and I thought I'd try one just to see if the ergonomics would work for me. And surprisingly, they did. You know, it was something that I liked, and what I found out by happy coincidence is that my ring mic fit in pretty well into the Harp Wah. Now, what I did was I MacGyvered this. I figured a way to secure the mic, and then I put compression fit sponges on the front so that when I put a harmonica in here, I don't have to necessarily grip it. I let the sponge grip it, and I play like this. So it was a good sound, and I think the only thing I really didn't like about it necessarily was the fact that the wire was coming out, so I could never get a full cup out of it. But this was also before I had the 3D printer. So this is all the stuff that I was doing, and for the time being, it was great. I had a solution, but I still did not know what to do if I needed to replace mics in the future. So once I was surprised one Christmas with a resin printer, actually, and I was using a resin printer because when we got it, we didn't know what I would need to do to troubleshoot the printers. There are less moving parts with a resin printer, even though there are other challenges with them. And so I started using that first and came up with designs in spite of the other limitations that you do have with resin. So the first real design I came up with is this guy, which I will now christen basically the Mark 1. And I found another mic that would work with it. Specifically, the Mad Catz. The Mad Catz mic. So, with the Mad Catz mic, I would take my Harp Wah and I would fit this through, and then I would put the mic through the other side in this shape here, and I would put the mic like that, and so the mic would kind of sit in the cup, and I would have this with an extra attachment, which would be the jaw, and it was a kind of a friction snap fit. And I put the harmonica through here, I'd slide it, and I'd be good to go. So this was a really good first training wheels prototype, and I used it in a lot of my gigs starting out with that printer, and it sounded great. Again, we had this limitation with the cord sticking out, so that was something I wanted to kind of get away from. Additionally, I wanted to make a adapter fully out of plastic and get rid of the metal cup, specifically because when you have other mics, including the Bullet mic, it would cause feedback. So when I got my Bullet mic, specifically the Bulletini, I looked into what I could build around it. And, there is this adapter now, which was now the Mark II that I built. And this houses the Bulletini very nicely in there. And I had a vent hole for my vibrato on the left side, and it was something that I would sort of hold like what I called a hamburger grip, and I would hold it like this, and I would be able to vibrato like this. Just saying that's okay. Hey baby, do what you want, and I'll be your night loving thing. I'll be the freak you can time. I don't care what you say. I wanna go too far. I'll be your everything. You be my star. Dirty Diana. Dirty Diana. Dirty Diana. So this was a great next step on the adapter, and I also had, of course, the slide jaw part to go in front, and there were some limitations with this one as well, and these were more apparent when I went to the 2002 SPA convention, where I got some really good feedback, mainly being that the harmonica distance between the harmonica and the mic was pretty large. It's about 2 inches or so in that chamber, and because of that it took up a lot of ambient noise, and that ambient noise causes some feedback issues at louder volumes. The second issue had more to stem with this design, which was you have air leakage due to just trying to fit multiple harmonicas in the same jaw. And so I did what every good engineer did. After I left the convention, I slept on it, and I thought, well, maybe I should just, for the sake of it, try making another adapter. And so we now christen to the Mark III, which will look a lot more familiar. And I also revamped the jaw head, and really to address the two issues that there was described at the spa, which was decrease the distance between the mic and the harmonica, so now it's closer to about 1/2 inch or less, and figure out a way to get a jaw that will reduce the air leakage in the front. And so what I started out with were these foam inserts, and I think this worked pretty well. Again, with this foam was leaking air. So we're not quite there yet, but we're like 90% there. And I've used this adapter for probably a good 6 months or so, and was really happy with it. It was just the head that needed to be adjusted one more time. So this is really the inception of the bullet chamber. Now, last year, right around the end of the year, I took the plunge and bought a filament printer because the technology has caught up to where we're getting close to a plug-and-chug type solution for printing. And so with the printer I have now, I was able to switch from resin to filament. And now we get into something that looks a lot more familiar. And this was the bullet chamber. Now, I still hadn't figured out the head, but I came up with a better material. I started using silicone. And so this is just a silicone insert that, fits into the head design. And this really got me the sound that I felt like I was missing, because with the silicone, you get a very airtight solution.
Christoph on the harmonica.
But I needed a little bit of pizzazz to make this a finished product, and a little bit more refinement, as you say. So this is when I figured out how to make the new jaw heads that you see today. And this has a little bit more clean look to it. I think it's more intuitive in how you place them in and hot swap the harmonicas compared to just a freeform silicone piece. And so this has been a retrospection of the origin and the reason why the bullet chamber exists. And I can say without exaggeration that this has been a real game changer for me in the gigs that I play at. Without this device, I would not be able to effectively get the tone that I want out of a bullet mic, just because of the hand-holding ergonomics. And I know there are a lot of solutions out there for harmonica players, specifically harmonica rack adapters, and these are great for rack players. And there are also other more options for those who want to use just a mic stand. But for me, I never really personally got comfortable using a rack as being a harmonica player only musician. And carrying a mic stand is just something else I would have to take with me in my gear. And so having a portable solution that I can fit in my gig case alongside my harmonicas is really convenient and really nice. And I'm hoping that somewhere out there, someone may also find value in this adapter. I'm really proud of its invention and its features. It's been a 2-year journey for me so far, and I don't plan on stopping. I mean, there are plenty of other things that I can do to continue to improve or have access to even more mic types or more harmonica types. So that's something I'm going to continue to investigate. In the description below, I'll put in a few links of maybe some of the things that I've talked about today that I used before my adapter, because I think these are still very good, viable products in their own right, and for other uses, they're still useful. So I'll put that there. If there are any comments, please feel free to leave them in the messages below, and I'll see you next time.